Is it just me or does Metal Gear Solid Delta look really weird? I just beat the original Metal Gear Solid 3 for the millionth time and I thought I was going through some type of nostalgia bias, but I don't know about that. Something just seems off about the remake's interpretation of character models and cutscenes. Everything looks good technically, but once the characters start moving around is when we start to dip our toe into the Uncanny Valley. The Uncanny Valley is a psychological phenomenon where things that look almost human but not exactly one-to-one trigger an unease or creepy feeling in us. As an example, let's use the opening of Snake Eater. Everything from the lighting to the high detail models look amazing. It has everything you would want in a remake, but take a look at Snake's lips here. You can see they wanted his mouth to realistically pull from the cigar, but the amount of stretch on the lips was so exaggerated to me that it became a distraction for the rest of the scene. The original had a more realistic pull of the cigar, as it's a subtle animation versus a full-on suction like in the remake. Then you have the character models themselves. Every character is remade with the highest of quality, but not everyone looks right to me. Snake sorta looks how he originally did. I wouldn't say he's just a modern version of the original model because I see they made him look a little bit softer in the cheeks, but you can clearly tell that this is Naked Snake. Major Zero and Paramedic are an interesting case as Zero looks faithful to his original design, while Paramedic only looks different once you compare her new design to her old design. On first glance, you might say this is how you remember her, but when you look at the PS2 version, you can clearly tell that they changed her a bit. Now Sokolov looks really weird. They got my guy looking like Squidward in the remake. Sokolov looks like Grove Street Games made him. He just looks so out of place in this game. Now to be fair, his design was always odd as he's a very thin man with a big head, which could be hard to make look real in this new art style. I could go on and on about the strange decisions made like Ocelot's JoJo Bizarre Adventure looking face and how the boss looks too detailed for my taste. Call me crazy, but I feel like the more detailed they make game characters, the less realistic they look, especially in a remake of a game like this. Metal Gear Solid 3 Delta is trying to be faithful to the original, and I think that's great as Metal Gear Solid 3 is damn near perfect to me. But you can't just slap better looking models over a PS2 game. I feel like the PS2 game is underneath a highly detailed animatronic version of Metal Gear Solid 3. They look like they're wearing skin suits of my favorite characters. Not everyone has this issue as Eva looks differently than her PS2 version, but not to the point that she's unrecognizable. And maybe because she looks so different, it actually helps with the PlayStation 2's original animations fit in this new character model versus them trying to make the character model look so much like the PS2 version and it just doesn't work out too well. Metal Gear Solid 3's cutscenes are embedded in my brain, so it surprised me when they changed them. Sometimes for the better, other times for the worse, but nothing egregious. The new character models do a good job of expressing emotions, but I think they dropped the ball a few times. The boss reaching out to Snake is less emotional because she lacks any noticeable sadness in her face. It's there, but it's so muted that you could take this look for a relaxed face versus an unhappy one. Notice how subtle animations go a long way on less detailed models, but on high quality models, you may not actually recognize the subtle animations, and if they overcompensate, it just looks off. Lighting, among other things, can change the feel of a scene. Ocelot can barely be seen in the remake because of the dark lighting and his hands covering his face compared to the original, where you could see him going from frustration to confusion, then a smirk of joy. The range of emotions could literally be in the remake, but you can't tell because it's so stiff. And the character model might be too big, which explains why his hands is covering up half his face. Speaking of being stiff, in the remake, Eva turns away from Ocelot with little to no emotions, which isn't bad because it still works as an oh shoot moment in the story if you know what's going on. Don't want to spoil it for you. But look at the PS2 version. Her eyes shift a bit like she's worried or thinking about something. And at the end, she lightly bites or grips her bottom lip as someone would if they were nervous. Her eyelids are also low as if she's sad or worried. Now, if I freeze the remake, right when she gets spotted, her eyes do appear to be widened, but it's so fast that you won't notice it. But after the fact, she just has a blank face, unlike her more lively PS2 version. Now, I'm not sitting here nitpicking every little thing about the remake. The game isn't bad by any means. For starters, everything looks great, especially when playing, minus Snake's goofy stance that looks even more ridiculous with the better visuals. The original game pushed CQC, close quarters combat, as a gameplay gimmick, and the remake does it better in the cutscenes. The original game shot these combat scenes in a slow motion followed by slow animations to show off the details. The remake has less slow-mo, and the movement is faster and heavier, so when someone gets slammed to the ground, it actually feels like it compared to the softer impact of the PS2 version. When the sorrow appears, it's actually raining blood like the boss says, unlike the PS2 version, which is just normal rain. The boss's stealth suit looks way better in the remake, as I always thought it looked like tinfoil before. When Snake knocks out Ocelot, the remake really sells his disorientated state with his eyes spinning in his head. Then we have Eva. Need I say more? I'm still playing through Delta, so there may be a shift in my opinion once I'm done with it. All in all, Delta is shaping up to be a great remake, and although I think the original overall looks better, what we have here is still great, just different, and that's how I like my remakes anyway. Give me something different that doesn't replace the original, but gives me a good but different interpretation of something I already like. I mean, heck, who knows? In the end, I might prefer the remake over the original, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Snake, you can't do that. The future will be changed. You'll create a time paradox.